Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming for our Grey Rhino Show today. Today is the fourth episode of our Grey Rhino Show for those who have been with us for the past three sessions, and today you're coming back again. Thank you very much for your support and your liking for us. And then for those who are joining us for the first time today, I would like to extend my warmest welcome to you as well. Before we start today's show, I would just like to maybe just spend 1 minute to go through some admin matters, because once we have gotten this sorted out, right, I'm sure you'll be able to enjoy the show even more. So firstly, if you are watching this with your, let's say, iPad or laptop, can you also prepare a second device that can be your handphone? Or if now you are watching us with your handphone, can you stand by another device? Because that has got to do with one of our segment later, and I'm sure you will greatly enjoy it. So remember, 2 devices. Secondly, because I understand sometimes you all may want to give some of your response or even key in some questions that you have. Okay, can I just refer you to the top right-hand corner of the screen? If you click on the 3 dots, you should be able to see chat, right? So can you click on the chat now? And at the bottom left corner, there are 2 options. One is to send to all panelists, and then the other one is to send to all panelists and attendees. So later on, when you want to give some response to the questions that we ask, or let's say if you want to type out your question that you want to ask us, can you please choose all panelists and attendees? Okay, this is because sometimes your question could be the question that another of our friends today want to ask, so that we don't need to repeat. And sharing is caring. So remember, later as you key in the response, remember to choose all panelists and attendees. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I think for the past 2 weeks have been quite eventful. For those who read news on a regular basis, especially in terms of the stock market, maybe one day you have read that S&P 500 has wiped out the 2020 loss with a historical rally. And then maybe on another day, you read that S&P 500 plunged nearly 60% in the final hour of trade. So actually what is happening? Is the market going up or coming down? Not to worry, this will be shared by Kate Wee as he summarized for you the economic update and market update over the past 2 weeks. After which, because last session, we started on our case study on ST engineering. So today we will be going to the part 2 of the case study. Okay, and then after that, same thing, we will still have Q&A. Just to help all of you to recap, the questions that we will be addressing to today, it will be from the questions last week. So same thing, let's say today when you have any question, as you key into the chat group to let us know, we will consolidate it and then we will address to it in the next episode. So do follow us. Okay, without further ado, can we invite Kate Wee to come onto the screen and then to start his sharing. Kate Wee, please.
Thanks, everybody. So welcome to the Grey Rhino Show, episode 4. So as Shereen said, quite a bit has happened in the last 2 weeks. So let me dive straight into it. Okay, so what has happened in the last 2 weeks? Of course, earlier this week, we got the good news for some people, or most people. Yeah, we have phase 2, that's going to start on Friday. So people start to be able to go to a restaurant and to be able to have meals with friends, not more than 5 per table. So I think Singapore is gradually getting out of its this lockdown phase. Okay, and then secondly, what has happened is also on the 4th of June, just a day after our last Grey Rhino Show, SPH is being removed from the Straits Times Index. Okay, so this is a company that we shared. Yeah, there was a structural losing company. So eventually it really got dropped out of the STI, Straits Times Index, and got replaced by the Mapletree Industrial Trust. Okay, so these are some local news that has happened in the last 2 weeks. How about the stock market? Let's go to the stock markets. Okay, this is a longer term since the start of the year. So we really had a big plunge, a valley, and then it came up quite substantially. This is the MSCI All World Index. So it came down 33%, and then it came back up 37%. Still below its peak. Yeah. However, has risen substantially. Okay. Yeah. So that's where we have been. But let's look at it for the last 2 weeks since our last Grey Rhino show. Okay, so that was from the 3rd of June until today. As you can see, it was a bit of a roller coaster. So it went up by about 5%, the MSCI All World Index, and then it declined by about 8%. And then it came up by another 5%. Quite a roller coaster just over the last 2 weeks. So why is it like that? Okay, let's take a look. Yeah. So where do you think the market will be heading next after this?
Hey, I was just thinking maybe it will be interesting to hear from our friends today before you share further. Because, okay, so maybe we can do a simple polling. For the friends who are with us today, if you can share with us, where do you think the market will be heading next? Can we have the polling screen to be out? You can choose from, okay, yes. So where do you think the market will be heading next? Is it you feel that it will continue to rally? Or you think that it will stay stagnant or time to plunge to the next low? There is no right or wrong, not to worry. And we won't know who gives which answer. So just share with us your thoughts. Okay, maybe we just take another 15 seconds. 15 seconds to share with us where do you feel the market will be heading next? Okay, we shall close the polling. Can we have the result so that we can understand? Quote Xiang, you put up. Interesting. Continue to rally and time to plunge to the next low is quite close. So Kiwi, 40% of our friends today feel that market will continue to rally. Slightly more than that, 43%, they feel that it's time to plunge to the next low. The bull is very tired, and 17% mentioned stay stagnant. So, can you share with us more on this?
Sure. Of course, I don't have the crystal ball as well, but I can share with you what do I see. Okay, so I think this is what I said on the 20th of May at the 2 Grey Rhino show ago, episode 2. So the time we were saying round 1 was over. Yeah, it's over. And will there be round 2? Yeah, because at the time, most of the countries, they're starting to reopen their economy. Yeah, so I say round 1 is basically over. But will the virus get knocked out in round 1? Or will round 2 happen? So that was what I shared. What could happen? What could round 2 look like? First is a resurgence of this COVID-19 virus with the reopening of economies. Yeah, and secondly, it could be a slow recovery, even if there's no resurgence, but the economic recovery could be slow. Yeah, slow consumption, slow business spending. And then I said, some industries could be permanently affected. Let's see what has happened, a month later. Okay, so this is just within these 2 weeks. So as US is reopening its economy, right? So the COVID-19 cases are trending slowly upwards in a number of states. As you can see, all posted record high levels of new coronavirus cases. And nearly half the country, 24 states, were experiencing higher levels of new COVID-19 cases than 2 weeks before. Okay, so this is what is in the news as US is opening. Because as I said, of all the countries, I think the country that's the highest risk of having a resurgence of viruses is actually US. Yeah, because US was one of the later countries to went into this COVID-19 crisis, and most cases were found there. And yet, I think they are also the most rapidly to want to reopen their economy. Yeah, and one of the big reasons is because, I said about Donald Trump, his re-election is coming up the end of this year in November. And usually, whether the re-election will be successful, right, really pivots on the economy. So if the economy remains at this state, that means Donald Trump has a very low chance of re-election. In fact, he's asking for rally, for people of up to 20,000 to have indoor rally. And then people who have to sign off to say that, if any of them contracted COVID-19 during the rally, they're not able to sue Donald Trump for it. So that is the state it is. Really, I'll say at the forefront is the president's wanting to win his re-election. So because of this, throwing caution to the wind, a resurgence of cases is very likely. And that's what we are seeing now. And secondly, this was, I think, last Wednesday, where the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, so he came out and shared. He thinks that there'll be a slow economic recovery from the pandemic-induced recession. And he said that on the right side, I didn't highlight. He said that likely the figures, the official figures of the unemployment understates the real extent of unemployment. So I think it's the recovery is not going to be a quick one. And this is also the reason, just now when I show you the charts, why there was a drop. I show you, I go back. Why was there a drop of 8%, right, over the last few days? So that was the cases, where they were worried over this second wave, this round 2 that's happening. But then again, what happened in the last couple of days? Why did it go up again? Well, one of the main reasons was because the Fed said they started to buy broadly corporate bonds. And this injecting of money, again, is causing a liquidity-driven rally, which is very much the story. This whole 37% rally is a big part of the liquidity-driven rally, similar to what happened prior to the start of this year. Right. So a lot of economists, in fact, a lot of, I can call it the hedge fund managers, the big boys, they weren't really participating in this rally because they see there was a divergence and there's a concern whether this liquidity could be forever. The Federal Reserve pumping in money forever. So people like Mark Howard's of Oaktree, Warren Buffett's, Stan Druckenmiller, who was a right-hand man of this George Soros. All of them actually were largely out of the markets during this time. Okay, so that's what we shared and what is actually happened. So what we shared really has happened in the economy. What didn't we? I'll say one thing we are not able to foretell to an accurate degree is really the amount of money that the Federal Reserve is going to print and how long. But as it is, it seems to stand rally to support the market, pump in money to be able to drive up this rally. That's why I said, if you sit totally on the sideline, I think that is a risk as much as being totally in the game. So some potential game-changing events that is coming up. Okay, so firstly, there's this paycheck protection scheme, and that will end in about just more than 10 days' time. Okay, what is this paycheck protection? Okay, paycheck protection is basically a loan that's given to SME, small medium enterprises. And if they use these loans, more than 75% for payroll, and they don't retrench anybody, this loan could be forgiven. That means they could apply and they don't need to repay the loan. However, if they don't meet it, that means they don't use it to retain their people, then the loan cannot be forgiven. So this is coming to an end. So I think this paycheck protection scheme could also be a big reason why there's a kind of rebound in the employment rates. Of course, with this, what we'll see is that will the unemployment rate come down again? Because without this forced money that's forcing people, SMEs, to be employing people, well then they lay off people because they could not afford it due to the low capacity of businesses. So that's one thing that's going to happen. And then in the end of July, currently there's this unemployment insurance which pays people who are unemployed about $600 per week, which is about $2,400 a month. I think there's a debate currently whether should this be extended. But the two schools of thought is if is extended, then people will be reluctant to come back to work. Because 2004, for those who are unemployed, it actually exceeds quite a fair number of people who are unemployed. So then if this is continued to be paid, why would they want to come back to work? The other school of thought is, businesses are still very fragile. They have no ability to employ all these people back in. So if you take away all this, then we'll see a lot of household defaults, household insolvency happening. Anyway, these are the two things that's going to happen. The expiry of these two in the near term, which could be a potential game changer, short-term game changer. So again, I talked about in the last time, I said, just like I think in the poll, we are quite undecided. Will this market continue to rally because of liquidity driven? Or is it going to come down? I think we are quite divided. So similarly, we will not have a crystal ball. And I think we want to be protected on both sides. So to protect against a big drawdown in this crisis, where if the Fed is unable to backstop a huge insolvency crisis, then I said we still need to run to cash and run to gold, which is also a form of currency. Although the volatility of gold is larger than that of cash. But generally over a whole crisis, gold tends to benefit. Okay, this is one way to protect ourselves. Is this the only way? I've shared before, I think this can't be the only way. If it is, you're putting yourself at risk as well. The second one is the other majority, 40%, who said that this rally will continue. And will continue not due to any legitimate reason. But maybe you can say it's legitimate, but it's due to this mass printing of money. It's a liquidity-driven rally that's been happening, and it could continue to happen. So we are running into a situation where money is getting more and more. And this money largely stays in the asset market, the financial markets. However, the good companies to be investing in, I call it the structural growth companies, which will be growing despite slow economic growth, are only a handful. Okay, so what was happening is going to have a whole lot of money chasing a small group of assets. So supply and demand. So after this crisis is over, we could see potentially a big surge in the prices of these companies. And the second one I said is interest rate is already at zero. And Jerome Powell says it will stay at 0% at least until the start of 2023. That's another 2.5 years at least. So interest rate is going to stay at zero. And I said interest rate is the gravity of asset prices. Right, in the 1966, I think 66 to 81, a good 16 years or 15 years, the Dow Jones didn't move up by 1 point. It didn't move up at all over a good 15 years. And what's the reason? It's because at the time inflation was raging. Then Paul Volcker, the late Paul Volcker, the Federal Chairman at the time, Federal Reserve Chairman, he kept increasing interest rates to combat inflation. And hence interest rate like a gravity, it pulls down the prices of assets. Today is the reverse. We're having mass near 0% interest rates. And hence when gravity is low, asset prices could fly. However, as I said, let's look at these charts. I use STI. STI is our Straits Times Index, which in Singapore, I have to say, is largely comprises of cyclical growth companies. Right, and then the green line, I just use one company as a proxy, which is Microsoft, because it's well known. Right, so you can see from the start of the year, Microsoft is already up a decent 25%. Right, I think that's decent by any year, right? Up by 25%, although it had a volatility. However, the Straits Times Index is still down by 16%. Well, and guess what? If the next downturn comes, I think it's also the blue line that's going to go down more than the green line, and you rebound faster, slower. So the risk reward wise, I think it largely favors the structural growth companies. Because when it drops lesser. When it comes up faster. And generally they don't need the Federal Reserve to rescue them. And they don't need much of the economic growth to be fueling their growth, because they are the disruptor, the innovators. Although at our last Grey Rhino Show, because of this reopening of the economy, where people are looking at, this economy could be rebounding, and hence some of these cyclical growth company had a very short bounce. Yeah, and I was thinking to myself, and that's what I'm really doing. Yeah, I'm willing to forego this short-term bounce, for the long-term uptrend of structural growth company. Yeah, of course I'm prepared, but there are various different methods of investing. Yeah, I prefer to invest long-term and catch the structural upward trend. Okay, so I think this is how to protect ourselves. Neither should we be all in, or neither should we be all out. Yeah, so we should keep some cash, some gold, and we should be investing in equities. Yeah, the high-quality ones. Okay, next then I think I want to move to the case study that we have, because it's quite a lot to talk about. So we talked about the last time asset allocation, the twin investment decision, asset allocation and asset selection. Okay, and talk about equities. There are 4 types. Yeah, we have these 4 types of equities, which today we want to talk about the mature and stable companies. Okay, so this is the 4 charts. Of course, I kind of gray out the rest. Today we're talking about the mature and stable company, using ST Engineering as a proxy. Well, I think ST Engineering is it should be pretty well known to most of us, but it's largely our defense contractor. So it's the one that designs, manufacture our defense equipment, like the tank that you're seeing here. Of course, this business is more than defense. Later on, I'll show you the spread of their businesses. Okay, so it has aerospace, which is the biggest part of his business, while doing MRO, maintenance, repair, and operations, which is basically about repairing all these planes. What planes like that? It's mandatory to have it serviced after a certain number of hours. Okay, so that is the biggest part. And then we have the electronics. Okay, electronics is a very wide area. Right, so it includes things like the signaling devices on the MRT, satellites, artificial intelligence. So it's actually a very wide area. Actually, even all this scanning of temperature during this COVID-19, these are some of the things that ST Engineering, ST Electronics participates in. So that's the second biggest part of their business. Okay, the third part, the land business, ST Land, which is 2 major parts. One is really defense, manufacturing like the tank that you're seeing. And secondly, in autonomous equipment and vehicles. Like in Sentosa, we have some autonomous buses, which runs without drivers. So that is done by ST Engineering. Okay, the last one is actually marine, which I won't touch much on this because it's a relatively small part of their business. So there you have it. ST Engineering, mainly 4 business segments. Of course, in each of the segments, there are sub-segments as well. Okay, let's look at it. The profit contribution by the various segments. This is in the annual reports 2019. As you can see, about 46% of their profits is in the aerospace. Okay, 32% in electronics, 13% in land, and 9% in marine. Total up about 580 million. That is their profit after tax. So what will I look at today? I will look at the past, present, and future of ST Engineering. Okay, the past, I will look at, I've shared some last week, like the 10 years, shared some in the last Grey Rhino Show rather, 2 weeks ago. So we are looking at the 10 years profit growth, and then the profit growth trend during the difficult times, like in the Great Recession in 2007, 2009. Dividends, because ST Engineering is a lot of people have it as part of their dividend stocks, okay, to give them a recurring passive income. Let's look at what has happened in the last 10 years. And of course, return on equity, which is something we use to gauge for the companies that we want to select. Generally put more than 10% at least. The present, especially with this COVID-19, how is it affecting ST Engineering? And the future, which is the long-term outlook of the company, and also the management guidance of the company's future. Okay, let's look at the past. Well, this is, I look a bit longer than 10 years, from 2006 to 2019, 13 years. So this is how ST Engineering earnings are looking like. Okay, so in the last crisis, it did decline. It declined 13%, and it took 4 years to exceed its, to come back to its pre-crisis earnings. Okay, so it is not immune to a recession, but yet I think it is a relatively resilient. How about long-term growth? Over the last 13 years, ST Engineering has grown 22%, which is really a pretty slow rate of growth, which is less than 2% per year. Okay, so ST Engineering generally is, as I said, a mature company, stable and mature, but growth is slow. And I said again, you remember just now I said the earnings over the last 13 years increased by 22%. How about its share price? You want to make a guess? How much did the share price go up in the last 13 years? Is it close to the increase in earnings, or is it different? Okay, sideways. Okay, from William. Yeah, indeed it's sideways. So what I want to share from here, before I share the actual number, is that share price don't exist in a vacuum. Right? Share price is based on something, which is based on the fortune of the company, largely the earnings. Yeah. So the late Benjamin Graham mentioned, the stock market is like a voting machine in the short term. It can swing around based on sentiments and emotion. But in the long term, it is a weighing machine. Yeah, that means it tells you exactly what your company is worth. So the last 13 years, ST Engineering share price has gone up 36 times, or 36%. Okay, so not very different from the 22% increase in earnings. So as you can see, it really is true. You know, the share price increase or decrease is very much, I would say, dependent on the earnings of the company. How about dividends? People who buy it for dividends. So this is a chart. Again, in the last crisis, there was also a cut of dividends by about 22%. Okay, from 2007 to 2009. So it's not totally immune. Long-term wise, right, I'll say it's relatively consistent, and also almost no growth of its dividends over the long term, paying about 15 cents per share. Okay, so that's how it's like. ST Engineering, ROE of 26%, which is very healthy. So I think if you look at the past, ST Engineering is largely, I say, it really falls into the mold of stable and mature, slow growth, and hence paying out a large part of its earnings as dividends. Hence, dividends-wise, it's actually pretty decent, at 4 to 5% per year. How about the present? Okay, what is happening to ST Engineering during this COVID-led crisis? Let's take a look. Okay, the share price of ST Engineering since the peak within this year is still down by about 23%. Okay, and its dividends today is about 4.35%. It's really quite decent in a very low interest environment. So 4.35%. So how will ST Engineering's earnings be affected by the crisis? Let's take a look. Okay, this is in its latest financial statements, first quarter, which ended 31st of March. Okay, ST Engineering had a record order book, which stands at 16.3 billion as at first quarter 2020. And this will support 2 years plus worth of order books of its revenue. Right, so I think this helps to support the near-term earnings and revenue, for the next 2 years plus. And secondly, ST Engineering is not, so it has a diversification of its customer type. Okay, as I shared earlier, ST Engineering, a lot of people really, when you mention ST Engineering, we think about defense, because they are our defense contractor. And true enough, about 30% of ST Engineering business comes from the defense business. And about 35% actually comes from the government, this government project, like for example, these autonomous buses in Sentosa. All these are part of government's project. Even this temperature screening is also part of a government's project. And that takes up about 35%. And the remaining 35% is commercial. Yeah, and defense and government businesses tend to be counter-cyclical. Yeah, which means it is not so much affected by the crisis. In fact, sometimes in crisis time, government may want to step up to actually be a buffer, to support the economy. Yeah, and hence, similarly for defense, especially in this time where there's a lot of geopolitical tension, countries are still stepping up on their defense spending. So these two tend to be counter-cyclical, which is close to about 60-70% of their business. So this adds a layer of resilience to ST Engineering's business. Second, diversification. So you say by region, it's about 55% of their customers are in Asia, 21 US, 17 Europe, and 7 the rest of the world. So I say generally pretty well diversified in terms of region. Secondly, diversified in terms of segments, as I talk about the 4 segments, and each having a sub-segment. Yeah. And then thirdly, customer type. So because of this diversification, it will not be, I would say, extremely affected just because one of its segments gets affected, by the virtue of its diversification. Of course, I say diversification works both ways. If one of its business does very well, it may not also move up the needle by a lot. So I say diversification is a two-edged sword. Then what did so the management, they give near-term guidance, which they think that the revenue will actually drop 5 to 15% compared to financial year 2019. Okay, if it dropped by 15%, it will bring the revenue back to 2018 figure. Because in 2019, it had a pretty good growth. Its revenue and profit grown by about 17%. So as a 15% drop, we'll bring it back to the 2018 figure. And I think it should still be able to support its dividend payout. I'll show you in the next chart. Okay, so this is where it has been. The blue line represents the earnings per share. Okay, the red bar represents dividends per share. Okay, so it shows 2018, 19, and 20. The 2020 figure, I'm basing it based on a 15% decline from 2019 figure. So as you can see, 2018, it paid out within its earnings. Almost all its earnings it paid out as dividends. 2019, because the earnings grew and the dividend remained the same, and hence give some buffer. And if it comes back down 15%, it should still be, the dividend should still be supported by the earnings, or even at the lower end of the earnings. So this is why I think the dividends could be supported in the near term. Let's then look at the future of ST Engineering. Okay, the first question is, will ST Engineering run the risk of being disrupted? Because I shared again, the stable and mature company, the biggest risk is actually disruption. And one of the areas is telecommunication. I said companies like say Singtel, StarHub, but they used to be the stable and mature company. Well, now I'm being a bit hesitant. Are they still the stable and mature company, or has they gone the way of being a structural decline company? I think one of the reasons is also because when the government introduced a fourth telco, maybe unexpectedly, it introduced a price war among the 3 telcos. And hence all 3 are pretty severely affected even before this COVID-19. So I say that's a risk of those stable and mature company, because if they are not innovating and they stay status quo, they run a risk of being disrupted. Will ST Engineering run that path? Okay, let's look at the fourth business segments. Aerospace tends to be a very tightly regulated industry. Why? together with healthcare, because anything that deals with life and death, usually is tightly regulated. Because airplanes, the last thing a country wants is, many of the airplanes, crash and lives are lost. You'll probably create a political upheaval. So it's a tightly regulated industry, which is not easy for new players to get in. Because it needs to have pass many layers of licensing and tests. So ST Engineering, being an incumbent, will likely it's not easy to disrupt existing players. And ST Engineering is a pretty well-established incumbent. Secondly, electronics. I think ST Engineering itself is actually on the leading edge in the technology area and engineering. So I think it is slightly more itself a disruptor or innovator. And being an innovator itself, it runs a lesser risk of being disrupted. And similarly for land, I think a key defense contractor, and I think that will likely stay largely the same, because I think the Singapore government will need to have a stable player, a local stable player that it can go to manufacture and design our defense equipment. And autonomous vehicles, again, is something leading edge, something that is coming up. So I think it is more likely they being the disruptor than being disrupted. Okay, marine, as I say, I won't touch too much on it. Okay, so generally, I think there's a low threat of disruption or more intensified competition in the near future. So I think this is comforting to know of a stable and mature company. So how's the prospect of ST Engineering? Let me look at it in terms of near-term and longer-term. Okay, near-term prospect. Unfortunately, as aerospace is the largest, is a hard-hit segment, right? Because the airlines, due to this lockdown, people not traveling, the airlines businesses are very hard hit. And unfortunately, that is also its biggest segment, at about 46 to 47% of their profits. Okay, so demand is going to reduce drastically because of less flights. Because if they fly less, then they don't need to send their plane for repair. As I say, it's by per hour. If they fly a certain number of hours, then they need to send it for repair. Okay, based on Avionics International, MRO businesses in this year is expected to reduce by 30%. And they forecast a recovery in 2021. I think, they, same as us, will not really know what's going to happen in 2021. So I think, most people are now forecasting a recovery. So I think if a recovery happens, then the MRO business should gradually recover. The second area that get hit is electronics. Not so much of cancellation of orders, but rather there's a delay in project implementation because of this restriction that has happened, now gradually being lifted. And some of the government tenders are being delayed. Because just like Minister Chan Chun Sing was saying a few days ago, the government is not going to cancel any project. However, it's still going to be rolled out based on the orders, based on the demand that is needed. So there could possibly be delay in some of this tendering. The long-term prospect, the management actually gave a 5-year growth plan in 2018. And the vision is to be a global technology, defense, and engineering powerhouse. And quite surprising, I'll say that maybe it's quite refreshing to see this. They are actually projecting their growth or planning for their growth to grow at 2 to 3 times annual GDP growth. And annual GDP growth I checked in the last 10 years is for 2.5 to 3% per year. So if you can grow at 2 to 3 times that rate, you'll probably be growing at 5% to 7.5% per year. So I think if this can happen, this materialize, in fact, ST Engineering could be growing faster than what they've done in the past. Remember, the last 13 years, it only grew 22%. Yeah. And if you can grow, say, about 5 to 7.5% over the next 5 years, it will already have been more than the last 13 years earnings growth. So if this happened, ST Engineering will be growing at a faster rate than in the past. Which is what happened in 2019. It acquired a few businesses, and hence its profit grew by 17%. And the second projection is its smart city revenue, which is actually to transform Singapore into a smart city. So in 2018, the revenue of smart city was 1 billion, and they project to double it in 2022. Of course, to double it is for a growth of 15% per year. Again, that will actually drive growth in the longer term. And for the management's guidance of profitability, they aim to grow profit at the same rates as revenue, which means they'll maintain their profit margin. So if this can be realized, I think it will be a good news for ST Engineering, because not only can it have a pretty good, decent dividends, it will also have a growth element to it, at least in the next 5 years. Okay, lastly, let's look at valuation-wise, because people may ask, well, then is it a good time to buy ST Engineering? Okay, this is just one way of looking at valuation, which is called a relative method of valuation. Looking at the current valuation versus its past averages. So in the past, I plot the last, since 2006, last 13 years, the average PE ratio of ST Engineering is about 20 times. Today, it's at 21 times, okay, slightly above the average. These I've already assumed a 15% drop in this year's profits. However, if ST Engineering's PE ratio could be re-rated, that means it could go beyond 20 times if they're able to show a consistent growth in their earnings in the years ahead. That means it could be valued not just as a dividends company, dividends payer, but also having a moderate growth. And hence such company could command a higher valuation. Of course, I think now it's still to see whether that will pan out. My take on ST Engineering, as you can see, I'll go through this quickly. Thumbs up, stability from its diversified business. Management appeared more growth focused with the 2018 5-year plan. Low threat of disruption in the near future. Good dividend yield of about 4.5% per annum. And one of the thumbs down. Okay, largely, ST Engineering is still a project-based businesses. Where we prefer is a recurring income business. So that's what we don't like. What I don't like so much. Secondly, I think growth is still expected to be low to moderate, 5 to 7.5% per year. Better than its past. Most of its free cash flow is paid out as dividends. So ST Engineering don't have much surplus cash every year. And hence, acquisition, I think, would have to be largely financed by debts. Which means there may be a limit how much ST Engineering can take on debts to grow its business. But currently, it's a very high quality rated, which means it can actually get debts at a very low interest rates because of its high debts rating. Okay, conclusion. Now, I would likely have a small portion of my equities, maybe 2.5 to 5% in ST Engineering, if I want steady dividends with moderate growth over time. The first case study I did was DBS. Personally, I would prefer ST Engineering to DBS at this moment, as I think the long-term prospect is less at risk. Because DBS, I said, is subject to two risks. One is if interest rate is kept low for a long period of time or gets lower from here, then I think its future earnings, like some of these big banks, the SHBC, HSBC, Standard Chartered, the prospect will be dim if all this happen. Okay, but as I said, largely, I would still want to put a significantly larger part of my portfolio in structural growth companies with annuities like recurrent income. Okay, so with this, I've come to the end of my sharing. Sherry, maybe let me hand it over to you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Kitwee. Okay, I hope that with Kitwee's sharing, all of you will have a clearer idea about what we meant when we mentioned mature and stable companies, because there are a total of 4 types of companies, which the last time Kate Wee has mentioned about has gone through DBS, which is supposed to be a cyclical company. And today, with the end of a case study on ST Engineering as a mature and stable company, for the next few episodes, we will be going through the other 2 types of company. Okay. Okay. Now let's move on to the Q&A segment. Okay. Same thing as per the last episode. We have actually identified 3 questions, and we do allow you to take your vote which question you would like it to be answered today. Okay. Can we have the polling, please? Oh, so there are a total of 3 questions. You can take your time to read through as I go through with you as well. So the first question, is there any other market that we can look into other than the market that we talk about? For example, Singapore and US. Like for example, China is a good area to look into as the COVID cases has been stabilized for other countries. So this is more towards exploring what other markets we can be looking into. Second question, how to know if the stock is overpriced? For example, how to tell the right time to buy Microsoft share? So this friend mentioned it's not cheap, and we all know it will keep growing given its business strength and COVID-19 situation. So this is more towards the valuation of stock price. Third question, what is the best investment approach in Singapore market in the next 10 years? There is no Microsoft in Singapore, and sometimes it's quite expensive for someone who only have 10K to start investing. Maybe this friend, you can consider engaging a consultant from Unicorn to go through the whole financial planning process with you. Anyway, for these 3 questions, choose one. So later, depending on the time that we have, we will be going through from the question that the most people chose. Okay, so just 5 more seconds for you to cast your vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Polling closed. Can we take a look at the result, please? Okay. Very close. So Kate Wee, our friends today, they have chosen. So majority actually chose question 2. Maybe I'll repeat question 2 for you. Or are you able to look at the screen now?
I can see. Yeah.
I can see, yeah? Okay, so maybe you can share with them your thoughts about question 2.
Okay, so it's actually about valuation. Okay, so I'm actually giving this a public course, that is IBF endorsed. And I'm sharing it with the students in that course. You know, there are actually 6 segments that I look at. The business, the financials, and valuation. And the valuation, I put it at the last. And I share with the students, you know, I'm structuring it this way by order of importance. The most important thing is the business. Although a lot of times businesses is a bit, the quality of it is more intangible. Then I go to the financials, which is more tangible, and valuation, which is also pretty tangible. What I mean is, today we may know how to. I said, what is valuation? I think you got to give it a proper name. Okay, so I'll say the valuation is not the determinants. So it's not like trying to value a company and then set this very defined line. If it's above that, means it's overpriced. Below that means it's attractively priced. It may be like that in the past. Later I will share. It's less so today. So what is valuation? Valuation is just a boundary to make sure that at least I don't overpay. So it's not a very hard and hard and fast rule. So I share with you this interesting cartoon, that I came across. I share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? So it's talking about Warren Buffett, as he progresses in his investing journey. Okay, so remember the teacher of Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham, the person who wrote The Intelligent Investor? What did Benjamin Graham wants people to do. So he's talked about avoid loss, margin of safety, net nets, cheap price. Okay, let me explain what Benjamin Graham means. You got to understand, Benjamin Graham is born in the Great Depression era. So he has actually seen his family almost going bankrupt. He said one of the story that really engraved in his heart was when his mom went to a grocer to buy a bread, and then she wants to buy it on credit, and the shopkeeper was asking, is Benjamin Graham's mom good for $5? Yeah, it means to give $5 credit to the mom. And when he was a boy, he saw it. He really gave him heartache, and hence when he grew up, he's determined not to have to fall into near bankruptcy states again, like in the Great Depression. So he was very focused on downside. Like he said, avoid loss, margin of safety, buy at cheap price. So Benjamin Graham is a lot focused on assets because he doesn't believe in future earnings. Yeah, he wants to only trust what he can see, which is the company's assets. So if the company has $1 million and if you can buy at $500,000, he said that's a good company. It doesn't even matter if the company is making losses. Yeah, so long as you can buy if the assets are there and I can buy at a sufficiently cheap price, and I buy many of them, well, I would have been a great investor. So he really did quite well. And that was the start of Warren Buffett. Because Warren Buffett evolved over time. So if the word to define Benjamin Graham is assets, and in this era, valuation is very easy. Because I can say, look at the assets. If the assets is $1 million, then what is the price? Yeah, then I'll set a price. Maybe I will not buy more than 60% of its assets. Yeah, so that is the maximum price I will buy. So valuation is very important and it's very defined. Let's look at how Warren Buffett has evolved. Yeah. So second one, I just go to the third one. So we talk about pricing power, moats, capital allocation, quality business, high return on capital, non-cyclical. So these are the phrases that defines what Warren Buffett was buying. Okay, so he actually he did not follow strictly Benjamin Graham's rule. In fact, he wanted to buy good quality company that has got a consistent growth in profits, that has got very high competitive advantage. Yeah. So then the word is he will actually treasure near-term earnings. Yeah. And then they can be growing gradually. Because in this growing up phase of Warren Buffett, there was not much of this revolution, unlike the technological revolution we are seeing today. In that few years, there was not much of this revolution, because the last revolution was the Industrial Revolution in the early 19th century. Yeah. So there was no revolution, so you could buy really pretty stable company. I think those that we call mature and stable company. You could buy those company and then just grow with this company, let's say 5-10% per year. Yeah, over time, you actually do very well, and you can buy it cheaply. Yeah. However, today, so that is if the first one, the phase is assets. This one I would say is current earnings. Today, let's look at the bubble. Great business, compounding machine, worldly wisdom, Lollapalooza, reasonable price, low capital intensity. Okay, later I'll go to reasonable price because that talk about valuation. So today, this is the type of companies we are looking at. It has to be great business. It's not just good. It has to be great businesses. Yeah, that means the very high quality business. Yeah, that can be compounding, say 15-20% per year, because it is structurally growing. Yeah, it is actually taking away market share from existing players. Yeah, so that's what company we are looking at is this, and the word is future earnings. And future earnings is very hard to define. I say if you can find a company that can go perpetually at 20%, no price is too high to buy. You can buy at any price if it's growing at 20% perpetually. Of course, no companies really do that. So the more important thing then is not the valuation. It's really whether you can find the right company at the outset. If you can find the right company that can grow at just 15-20% for a reasonable period of time, say between 10 to 20 years or 30 years, you can pay a very high price for it and it will still be cheap relative to its growth of earnings. But the thing is, it's not easy, to be able to foresee that growth in profits from where we are all the way to 10, 20, 30 years later. And hence, as I share with the students of my class, the priority has to go from valuation to the business. Yeah, to find the best business, the right business, the best compounder you can be finding. And sometimes we have to pay a higher price. That's why it's buying at a reasonable price. It's not buying at cheap price for Warren Buffett now. Yeah, so I like to close this. So talk about valuation. So then, personally, I'll use this metric, price earnings growth ratio, not exceeding 3 times. Yeah. So that's a metric that I use, an easy metric to use. Price earnings growth ratio not exceeding 3 times. Yeah. So that is my yardstick. But as I said, that is just a boundary to make sure that I don't overstep it. So I'm not going to pay that much attention to valuation, let alone spending hours to go through a valuation model. What's most important, as I say, has to go back to the quality of the business, which involves both an intangible factor and a tangible factor. Yeah, it's not just to get the numbers. Although I know a lot of investors like to just look at the numbers because that's very tangible. Yeah, but actually the more important factors lies in the intangibles. I hope I didn't give you. I didn't give a direct answer, but I hope I gave a comprehensive answer. Yeah, to this question about valuation.
Okay, thanks, Kate. I think we have time to go to the second question. Second question is actually, what is the best investment approach in Singapore market in the next 10 years? There is no Microsoft in Singapore, and sometimes it's quite expensive for someone who only have like 10K to start investing. And when I look at this question, KB, I think many of our friends, they would like to ask you this, whether or not there are, like, for example, structural growth companies in Singapore. Because from today's chat group, okay, I think, who is that? Roger and Jason, they also asked about this, particularly in Singapore. So, yes, best investment approach, and I believe they refer to structural growth companies since like almost every episode you have been mentioning about it. Are there any such companies in Singapore?
Unfortunately not. Well, maybe there's some that are could be having some of that characteristics. Yeah, I wouldn't say, but I think there are no really true blue ones. Yeah, like Sheng Siong has been growing quite well in the last several years. Yeah, Sheng Siong has been doing pretty well. Yeah. So I said generally
even prior to COVID, actually they are doing quite well. They've been doing quite well.
Yeah, they're doing quite well. Hence, I would say the large part, especially with this substitution. So SPH is now being removed from STI, and some other companies like ComfortDelGro, so SPH together with ComfortDelGro sets are all removed from this MSCI Singapore. Okay, so to fill up all this is actually the REITs. So Singapore is becoming a dividend yielding market. If you want to buy the Singapore market, so the REITs, the banks, maybe even ST Engineering. So I think if you are looking at Singapore markets, that is largely the kind of companies. So if a person wants to buy for dividends, I think it's not a bad place to look at. Because also we are very fortunate that we don't have any capital gain tax nor dividend tax. One of the very few countries with no dividend tax. So you get a full dividends that is paid out by the company. So I think that is a good part about Singapore. Yeah. So I think it's you can buy a company for, let's say, 3 to 5% dividends, and you are happy to keep it despite the up and down. Yeah. Then I think that's what you receive, 3 to 5% per year. Maybe with a slight capital gain. But as I said, the large majority of Singapore companies are the cyclical growth companies, the banks and some of these REITs. Yeah, and hence I said, well, over the long term, there may not be a significant increase in share price, like what we've seen for ST Engineering, just 36% over a 13 years period. So I think that's something we have to be aware, investing in Singapore markets. Not much capital growth. It'll be cyclical. That means when the economic downturn, it will actually drop. So you got to have the stomach to hold through these periods. So I think largely if you want to invest in Singapore, that is the kind of places to look at. For dividends. So then how can we then should we only just invest in Singapore? Okay, I just backtrack a little bit. I say largely cyclical, but I really still want to caution against stepping into any of landmines of a structural loser. Structural loser is a one-way traffic. So next week I'll be going, 2 weeks time, the next Grey Rhino Show, I'll be talking about SPH. Were there clear telltale signs that it's a structural loser? Well before this, being put out of the STI. So I think there are definitely landmines amongst the companies in Singapore, even amongst the big blue chips. I think that's where we got to be very careful. Even among REITs, there are also landmines. So I think that's where we got to be careful. So all I would suggest is, if a person wants to have dividends, 3-5%, I think Singapore is quite a fertile ground for it. If you want to have a structural growth winner, Singapore is a very barren land for it. And hence, I won't encourage you to search for structural growth company within Singapore. But let's say, like the friend said, if you only got 10,000, what could you do? Then we will not need to buy directly into stocks. We could always buy a fund's ETF. For example, one of the fund that I recommended, in this year, I think was bought in the 1st of April. It's a technology mutual funds. And it's gone up by 42% since 1st of April. And that's not too bad. I mean, or rather say that's very good, being able to have a 42% growth. I say within a short period. But of course, I say that's a portion we bought during the low of the market, on the 1st of April. Hence, you could be looking at mutual funds, ETF, to be helping you to have exposure to this overseas market. And all these ETF and mutual funds, it doesn't cost you a lot. For 10,000, you could, for just about 5,000, half of it, let's say, you could easily purchase a few ETF or a few mutual funds. And that could get you diversified. Of course, the choice of funds and ETF are also important. And hence, let's say if you need someone to guide you, like what Shereen mentioned, the person who invited you here, if it's a financial consultant, I think he could guide you about how to choose some of these funds. These structural growth funds. Shereen, that's how I would say. Maybe you can split it up. Some in Singapore, if the dividends, you're happy with it. And then some of it, with 10K, maybe I suggest there's no need to go and search for stocks. Overseas, you can just buy some of these ETF mutual funds, and you should probably do quite well if they're in the right area.
Okay, thank you very much, KV. Thank you. I hope that answers the questions from Roger and Jason. And then, for example, if some of you really want to understand how do we identify structural loser and then structural winner, right? Do follow us on our Grey Rhino Show in the upcoming episode. So that will come to the end of our Q&A segment. For those who have given us your question today, we will consolidate it after the session today, and then together with the question indicated during registration for the next episode, we will filter out and choose some question for all of you to vote again in the next episode. Okay? Thank you very much.
Shereen, are we going to answer the third question the next time? Or just in case you're a paper person?
Okay, sure. We can.
I think we still KIV that, right? We still KIV that question, the unanswered one. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kitwi. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
Now it's time for us to wrap up today's session with some fun. Okay, just now I mentioned about preparing your second device, right? Okay, can you take out your second device and then can we have the slide on what to do next? Okay, I will need your help to go to www.kahoot.it and key in the game pin 626-9747. This is the time when we will see who was paying attention to Kate Wee earlier on and then who has got the fastest finger. So do join us for this fun, and then the winner, the one and only winner for today, who has gotten the most number of questions right with the fastest speed, you will have a surprise present. Okay, I think people are still logging in, so maybe we give everyone some time. I see some familiar faces. Some of you joined us for the last Kahoot game as well. Any more joining? Are you stuck? Is your network slow? Okay, let's give the rest another 30 seconds. Do join us for the fun. Okay. KS is me. So who is KS? SQ. Okay, I think we should have those people who wish to join us here already. Okay, shall we start? Okay, really you make it in time and SK. Okay, 5 questions. Are you ready? First question. What could be a cause for round 2 of this COVID-19? Okay, 51 answers. Gayo, you have 15 seconds left. Okay, wow, majority of you have gotten it right. So the cause will be resurgence of the COVID-19 virus after reopening of the economy. Let's hope that this doesn't happen in Singapore after the 19th of June, which is this Friday. Okay, thank you. Congratulations. Let's see who has gotten it right and have keyed in the answer the fastest finger. Can we look at the result? Oh, Clive. You are very fast. You have got 935 points and then followed by V. V as in like victory. Okay, 930 points. And then followed very, very closely by Enrico, Nathan, and Albert as well. Congratulations. Let's move on to the second question. What kind of assets would be a poor protection against a second round of stock market correction? Is it cash? Is it gold? How about cyclical growth equities or structural growth equities? Okay, let's see. Okay, 60 of you have gotten it right. Yes, it's cyclical growth equities. Not cash, not gold, not structural growth equities. Okay, next question, please. Oh, sorry. Let's look at the scoreboard. Okay, Clive, you are still at the champion position. Okay, Enrico, you have overtaken V, following very closely, and then man, not woman, Jason and Nathan. Okay, Nathan, I see your name again. Jayo. Okay, let's move on to question 3. What kind of company is ST Engineering? This should be very easy. If you haven't gotten it from Kick Me, just now I repeated as well. Is it mature and stable, cyclical growth, structural losers, or structural winners? Alamak, there are a total of 13 who got it wrong. Okay, next episode we will do our best. We will keep on repeating and repeating and repeating. But congratulations to the 64 friends who have gotten it correct. Yes, ST Engineering is mature and stable company. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. Oh, Clive, where are you? Enrico, you have overtaken so many people. Okay, so now Enrico is number 1, followed by LCH. Okay, oh, LCH and Men, both of you are having the same point, and then followed very closely by Nathan and then Tres. We have got 2 more questions. Let's see what's going to happen next. Can we have the next question, please? What is the approximate current dividend yield of ST Engineering? 4.5, 4, 4.5, 6. This is not asking what is the dividend yield that you want. It's about the current dividend yield of ST Oh, okay. I think, okay, only 30 got it correct. The other 2, okay, I think quite a number of you mentioned is 4. Okay, 0.5% lesser. And then 2.5 and 2 of you put 6. Okay, no worries. Congratulations to the 30 who got it right. I hope that you have gotten, oh yeah, 4 to 4.5% is too close. Of course, if you are having the shares and then I tell you, okay, I'll give you 0.5% lesser, I think you will fight for it also, right, Jason? Okay, let's go to the last, let's go to the scoreboard. Okay, Men, so I believe you have gotten this correct. That's why you kick Enrico out, and I don't know where's Enrico now. And I see Ikan Bilis is your friend Nasi Lemak. Okay, so Men, congratulations. Now you are number 1, followed by Tres, JW, N, Nene, Nana, Nunu, okay, and Ikan Bilis. Last question. Based on the 5-year plan done in 2018, what is the ST Engineering's estimated annual growth rate from 2018 to 2023? This is a percentage question again. Is it 1 to 2, 2.5 to 4, 3 to 5, or 5 to 7? Okay, yes, it's 5 to 7. Okay, let's see. Who is the final winner? Let's look at the podium. Okay. Oh, Ikan Bilis, you are number 3. 5 out of 5. JW. And number 1 is... Yes! Congratulations! Actually, I'm very impressed because 3 of you actually got all the 5 questions right. Just that, I think, Man, you are a man with fastest finger. Congratulations. So, Man, can you just drop a message in the chat group, but to the panelists only. So give us the name of your registration so that our colleague will link up with you to deliver to you the surprise gift. Okay? Thank you very much for your participation. Okay, can we end the show? Can we end the game now? Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for the participation today. Andaman Tamzil. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much for your participation today. I really hope that you have garnered some insights from Kate's sharing. And I hope that, because especially for those who have been with us for 4 episodes or even 2 or 3, right? I really hope that you don't just join us to gain knowledge, because knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. After understanding how we analyze certain stocks and shares, after understanding where we think the market is going, how is the economic like. So I sincerely hope that after today's session, you can spend some time to do one or a few of the following. Firstly, take a look at your own investment portfolio. It could be stocks portfolio, or it can be mutual funds portfolio, or any form of investment portfolio. So after looking at it, it would be good if you can have a fruitful discussion with a professional, so that you can understand and have an assessment of how your portfolio is doing and where your portfolio should be heading to. Because I believe every one of us, when we invest, our purpose is to make money to fulfill certain financial objectives that we have. So do not and never have the mindset that I invest in something, I leave it there for decades and it will make money. Because a lot of times, right, that's not the case. Okay? And then thirdly, continue to follow us on our Grey Rhino Show. Continue to join us for the interacting session and for us to grow together. Okay? Without further ado, I'm just going to end today's session with our next episode details. Okay, let me share screen. Okay. Coming up, episode 5, that's going to happen in 2 weeks' time on the 1st of July, Wednesday, same thing at 8 p.m. So for those who have subscribed to our auto subscribing, okay, you don't need to scan this. Okay, so we will automatically be sending you the details of every episode if you have subscribed to us. So for those of you, if you have not confirmed your schedule, okay, not to worry. For those who have not subscribed to us, not to worry, because after, when you leave the room later, you will be linked to a survey form. So in the survey form, you can actually indicate that you would like to subscribe to our notification. Then you do not need to register it on a bi-weekly basis. So for those of you, maybe at this current juncture, you do not want to subscribe to us yet, not to worry, you can just scan the QR code on your right. Okay, so thank you very much for being with us tonight. Enjoy your week ahead. 19th of June, yes, phase 2 of reopening of Singapore, but stay safe, stay healthy for yourself and your loved ones. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.